Okay, great. So let's get started. We have a great group here today, and excited to again talk about how career services is filling the skills gap. Um, my name is David Kozik. I'm the founder and CEO of UConnect. We built the first all-in-one virtual career center, which is really designed to improve access to career services early in people's lives and throughout their careers, to help people realize their potential and lead more meaningful lives and careers. Um, we are thrilled to be joined by two fantastic career service professionals from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Everybody on the call is encouraged to use the question box and the chat. I see people already using the chat, so it's great. And feel free to chat amongst yourself. There's some UConnect team members here in the chat as well, so use that as appropriate, and then feel free to add questions to the Q&A. We will be saving some time for Q&A at the end, and so we'll hope to get to those questions and have Holly and Carol share more of their feedback in response to those questions towards the end. Lastly, this is being recorded, so if you have to jump early or you want to share this with colleagues, it will be sent around over email after the presentation, and so you'll have a copy of the recording. And so without further ado, I'm gonna just quickly cover today's agenda. We'll start with some introductions of the folks on the panel. We'll talk a little bit about why skill building matters, perhaps now more than ever before. How career services can lead the charge in facilitating on-demand skill building for students and alums. We'll give you a quick overview of the UConnect and LinkedIn Learning integration. My colleague Ali here will talk through how that works from a product perspective. And then we'll hand it off to the experts, Holly and Carol, to talk about how UMass Amherst is specifically addressing skill building. And then again, we'll leave about 15 minutes for Q&A. So without further ado, welcome to the panel. Would love to just start by doing some quick introductions. I already introduced myself. So Holly, would you like to introduce yourself, give it a little background?
Sure, happy to. Thank you for having me and for that introduction, David. So my name is Holly Lawrence, and I'm the Assistant Dean of the Office of Career Success in the Eisenberg School of Management at UMass Amherst. My office is relatively new. It was created just after the start of the pandemic by our Dean, Ann Massey. The Office of Career Success is made up of the Chase Career Center and my home academic unit, Business Communications. And the idea behind this office was to leverage the expertise of both subunits, the Career Center and Business Communications. There are coaching services, special programming, teaching, and workshops. So my initial charge, among other things, was to expand our reach and serve our school's many master's level graduate students, in addition to our 4,200 undergraduates. So one of the things we were asked to do to help extend that reach was to create more digital resources that our students could use 24/7. And that's one of the things that led us to UConnect. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I report to the Eisenberg School's Associate Dean for Finance and have periodic check-ins with the Dean of the school. And we made the decision to create a virtual career center with UConnect about a year ago, so early spring semester of 2021. And then we actually launched our site, which we call iConnect. We launched it this past fall semester. So we are one semester and winter break strong with iConnect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly, and welcome. Carol, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, David, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate on this panel. Huge fan of UConnect, and so happy to be part of spreading the word. So I'm Carol Sherrick. I'm the Director of Career and Professional Development here in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences at UMass. We are a college of 5,000 undergraduates within UMass Amherst. And We have a variety of majors that include economics and resource economics, anthropology, sociology, and then journalism, communication. We've got a wide variety of student interests. And so we have the job of helping students figure out what path they're going to take, and how they can start getting experiences to make that happen. My office is under our academic unit in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And so our career office and our academic advising office are combined in our, what we call the SBS Pathways Center. And we are in the reporting line directly to the dean of our college. And we, in the spring of 2020, right when COVID hit, is when we started talking to David and to UConnect. And so we've had our contract with them since June of 2020, so about a year and a half.
Awesome. Welcome, Carol. And Allison, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Allie. Been at UConnect for almost 6 years now and helped to lead product. So excited to talk to you about this new integration.
And welcome, Allie. So awesome. I'm just going to give a really quick introduction on UConnect for those of you who are unfamiliar. Like I mentioned, UConnect has built the first all-in-one virtual career center, really to help career leaders scale their impact on student success and institutional effectiveness. UConnect is really used as a single home for all the campus career resources, data, and information that a school has in one single place, with the idea to improve visibility, accessibility, and ultimately engagement with the career resources and services that schools already have. The way that it works is, quite simply, to create a single home that is aligned with your brand and your office's identity, and then integrating all of the various tools and technologies and resources that you have into one single destination for search and discovery. So we integrate with many of the most commonly used resources in higher education career services, all the job board platforms, the mentor, the alumni mentor platforms, labor market data, experiential learning, and today we're excited to be talking about some of our integrations around skill building, specifically LinkedIn Learning. And we'll get into a little bit more of that as we get in, but that's a little bit of background on UConnect. And just want to jump in a little bit and discuss why skill building. I think most of the people on the call appreciate this, and this stat has been around for probably 18 months, and it's an outcome of a Gallup survey of institutional leaders at thousands of institutions, and many great findings from this research. But one was that 96% of chief academic officers in higher ed believe that they're preparing students for the workforce, yet only 11% of employers strongly agree with that. And so there's clearly a divide between what institutions believe they're doing to prepare students for the workforce and what employers are experiencing. And the traditional curriculum that takes place inside the classroom is obviously valuable for so many different reasons and helps build strong skills, hard skills, and soft skills. But the reality is that it's hard for them to keep pace with the ever-changing in demand skills that are being required by employers as consumer behavior changes, as technology changes, as the workforce changes. Those skills are going to continue to evolve, and employers are moving quickly to make sure that they have the talent and the skills that they need. And so the skills that they're looking for from top talent is constantly evolving, and they're constantly sort of grooming and iterating their recruiting process to make sure that they're hiring for the right people. And we did a little bit of research here to just uncover some of these points. I think one of the areas that stood out to us was common skills and careers for an English major, as an example. And so you see here on the left-hand side, top careers for people who majored in English: teachers, librarians, writers, technical writers and editors, news reporters and analysts, and marketers. which doesn't seem particularly surprising. But then you look on the right-hand side and you see the top skills that are in demand for those careers. You see technical writing, copywriting, search engine optimization, digital marketing, and B2B marketing. And so what we're highlighting here, which is really common across so many different career paths and learning paths, is that a lot of the skills that are required to be great in these careers on the left-hand side are taught in the curriculum. There are definitely some that are not, and there are going to be increasingly skills that are going to be required to enter these careers and other careers that may not be in the curriculum. And the ability to sort of adjust the curriculum as quickly as the needs of employers are changing is just really, not that practical, not that reasonable, given the way that the life cycle of the curriculum works. And so, as a way to sort of highlight some of the in-demand jobs and some of the skills that are being sought after by employers, you look at the highest in-demand jobs today, as found from a LinkedIn survey done in 2021. These are the top in-demand jobs today, from software engineer to salespeople to JavaScript developers, registered nurses, all the way down to retail salespeople and product managers. And the jobs with the fastest growing demand: technology specialist growing almost 200% from last year, automation test analyst growing 166, development team lead growing 160%. And so generally speaking, what you're seeing is that if you look at the skills that are in demand and the jobs that are being sought after from employers, they're changing very, very quickly, and they're changing in real time. And so what we're finding is that schools are being proactive, and they're trying to make sure that students have the skills that they need to be successful in the jobs that are being recruited for in the marketplace. But it's growing so quickly and changing so quickly that there needs to be something that sort of helps students fill the gaps and helps institutions do so in supporting their students and alumni in a way that doesn't require to change the curriculum every year, right? And sort of serve as a complement to everything that they're doing in a traditional curriculum and traditional sort of student experience. And so that's a little bit about sort of high level, how we're thinking about why skills are important today, and why skill building is an important sort of area to be proactive in helping students sort of launch meaningful careers upon graduation. One of the other things that we're thinking about and talking to a lot of institutions about is, how does this get implemented, right? How does something like this, a skill building initiative, get implemented at an institution? Who owns it? Who facilitates it? Who's involved? And so, one of the things that we've talked about internally and talked about with some of our partners is, who are the candidates, right? You look across a college or university ecosystem, lots of different departments, lots of different divisions, and who are the candidates to be able to effectively make sure that students are aware of skill building opportunities, taking advantage of skill building opportunities, and using them effectively to make sure that they're launching careers upon graduation. And call us biased, because we love working with career officers, but career service seems to be a natural place for skill building activity to be housed, and not necessarily where career services are the ones who are providing the skill building, doing all the recommendations and doing all the support, but more so being the ones who are there to facilitate awareness of those skill building opportunities, but then also making sure that all of the different partners that they have across campus and the different stakeholders that students engage with organically every single day, whether it's in the academic advising department or members of the faculty or folks in the athletic department, whoever students are organically engaging with every day, know about these resources, are able to recommend these resources to students and support them and encourage them and motivate them to pursue these skills. And so I think we're finding in lots of different cases that career services is taking on this initiative. They're sort of raising their hands and being the facilitator around connecting students with the right skill building courses that are in demand by employers to make sure that they're ready to launch meaningful careers in this dynamic workforce that we're all seeing today. A little bit about Here's Why. I'm sure this goes without saying for a lot of folks on the call, but number one, first and foremost, is that career services is constantly engaging with employers, more so than any other department on campus. They're engaging with employers virtually, they're engaging with employers in person, through surveys, and through lots of other ways to really understand what employers are looking for, what the employers who are targeting their students are looking for, and how that's changing over time. We have several examples of our Career Center partners who are administering surveys monthly, quarterly to employers to understand what they're looking for, what skills gaps they see, and what skills they're looking for in entry-level talent. And so Career Services is doing that as a core part of their work every single day. And for them to have a pulse on what employers are looking for puts them in a really, really good position to be able to guide students and guide partners across campus to recommend the right skill building courses for students that align with their employers' needs and interests. Second is students are already seeking Career Services out for support with career goals and pursuits, right? So they're meeting with career professionals, talking about what their interests are, what their goals are, what paths they're looking to pursue. And so as part of those conversations, what skills they have, what skills, the pathways they're looking to pursue in demand, and then where is there a gap, and what might be most important, or what might be the top priority to fill the gap, should be part of that conversation, a core part of that conversation as students prepare to launch meaningful careers, and not disconnected in any way from that conversation. So it's also really important that career service at the center of this conversation, because they can embed it into those career advising and career coaching appointments that they're having with students all the time. And then lastly, skill building goes hand in hand with other career resources and services that career centers are offering their students. And so if a student is thinking that they want to be on a path to data science and they're currently a math major, identifying where the gaps are and what skills they might want to build to make sure they're in the best position to launch a career in data science. The next sort of step after that conversation might be what internships are available in the data science space. So maybe they go into Handshake with a student and walk through some of the opportunities in the data science space, and sort of help them not only understand how to build the skills to be in a good position, but then also take advantage of that, take the next step, connect with employers, and get further down their path. I think we're constantly seeing the career services professionals are, again, raising their hand and taking the initiative. This is a quote from Melanie Murphy, who is the Director of Career Exploration and Campus Engagement at Denison University, that has been using UConnect for about a year and has been using the UConnect LinkedIn learning integration as well. We see other partners that we're working with. University of Washington comes to mind, Brianna Randall and her team implementing LinkedIn learning into the career services experience, and doing so very effectively. And of course, our wonderful panelists today, UMass Amherst, are doing that as well. And we're excited to sort of dive deeper into that, into that experience and their early findings. But before we do, we want to walk through a little bit of the actual integration, how it works on the back end and on the front end, and all that good stuff. Just as a reminder, again, for those who are new to UConnect, this is an example of Holly's implementation at UMass Amherst. And again, it's a virtual career center, really a single home for all their career resources, data and information. Holly will talk more about this, but they're integrating tools like Handshake, People Grove, labor market data from MZ Burning Glass, Vault Guides, and of course, LinkedIn Learning. And really, the value for institutions and career service professionals is to have a single home for all these resources that can be absolutely transformational for students if they are aware of these resources and know how to use them in context. And then secondarily, the ability to have all that content and all those resources consolidated into one central place makes it much, much easier to curate those resources for students based on their background, their interests, their career goals, how they identify, whether it's a first-gen student or an international student, a student athlete, maybe a student interested in marketing, whoever it might be, but to make sure that those resources are curated and not just say, hey, here's a job board or hey, here's a database of thousands of alums that want to meet with you, but hey, here are the right internships and jobs that you might be thinking about. Here's the right alumni connections that could be valuable in your journey. And so, that's really, that's really at a very high level what UConnect is and what the value is. And I'm going to turn it over to Allie to talk a little bit about how the LinkedIn Learning integration works. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And go ahead, Al.
Thanks, David. All right. So again, at a very high level, UConnect is the virtual career center that integrates all of these tools and resources from across campus in a meaningful way to help inspire engagement with your end users. And so what I'd love to do is just show you a little bit of how that works. So without getting too technical, within each of our UConnect implementations, we have a bridge, which essentially allows us to integrate with a variety of different tools from the institutional ecosystem, with LinkedIn Learning being the one we'll look at today. So with just a couple of small pieces of information, we can set up the configuration with LinkedIn Learning. And then the part that I really would love to show you is this mapping section, which the cool part about this is that it essentially allows us to look at the way your lessons and your content is organized within LinkedIn and apply that same organization within UConnect. So if you look at some of these options here, for instance, subjects, we can look at the way that you're organizing and allowing students to explore and find content in LinkedIn, and then say, okay, any classes that are relevant for animation and illustration, we'd like those to be surfaced through exploration into the art, media, and communications community on UConnect. So in that way, you can really be very seamless and automated in the integration and curation of that content within your UConnect platform. So this is all something we work with you to configure, which allows your classes to seamlessly pull in to the classes library in your UConnect dashboard. So you'll see all of these amazing courses pulling in from LinkedIn Learning. And then on the front end, what that looks like on one of these communities is that all of your courses will pull in and be accessible through a LinkedIn Learning space here, like you see. So for instance, if I'm interested in Introduction to Graphic Design, I can click on this to learn more. I can read a brief description of the class, and then when I click out to it, it'll redirect me to LinkedIn to sign in and experience the course. And so what's nice about the integration that we've built is that we can automatically curate and present these courses within the relevant communities that represent the different particular skills that could be gained or the industry that it would help prepare you for. And so it can be completely automated. So you don't have to worry about manually kind of curating and publishing this content. We work with you to set that up once, and then it will seamlessly update, manage, and introduce new courses as those become available on the LinkedIn side. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Al.
Yeah, of course.
And again, one of the, one of the big advantages for our partners and of course, their students and alums is to be able to see LinkedIn Learning courses right next to alumni mentors, right next to internships and jobs, right next to industry guides, career news and advice, events and programs, all the different resources that could be available right at their fingertips. And then, as Ali showed, curated into communities that align to students' backgrounds, identities, affinities, and interests. And so just a radically simplified search and discovery experience. And, excited to include such powerful content from LinkedIn Learning in that experience. And so, so great. So thank you, Ali. And then now I want to pass it off to, again, the experts and the folks that are implementing this on their campus and making sure that these resources are visible and accessible to all of their students and alums. So Holly, without further ado, please go ahead.
Thank you. I guess maybe first I'd like to say a little bit about what we were facing and why we developed our iConnect site. So I mentioned that part of my initial charge was to make digital resources available to our students readily 24/7. And that seems like, oh, okay, sure. Well, we'll put them in, we'll make digital resources available. That shouldn't be that hard. Well, it actually is, of course, when you're using a traditional website, because making updates can be laborious. Most of institutional websites, I think these days, are often for prospective students and don't necessarily have a lot that's there for current students, or if they do, you go through a process to make updates. So when we found out about UConnect, it really made a lot of sense for us to develop a virtual career center where we could put all of our assets. And our first integration we made was with Handshake. We moved completely over to Handshake after having also used Simplicity for a while. And now we could have all the jobs and events that were relevant for our students filtered and integrated into iConnect, so students could go there and they could find what was top of mind for them in their major and in their interest for internships and full-time jobs. So that was a great way for us to launch. And as I said, we launched, I guess, end of August. We also are in the process of adding student organizations to our site, I should say, and this is probably news to you, David. We just launched a sampling of student organizations today, in fact, from our main nav. And that means that we're also going to be integrating with Anthology, which is the engine behind student organizations at the central level at UMass. So our Eisenberg representation on the central site will now be integrated onto our iConnect site as well through Anthology. And we have Labor Market Insights, which I think is a really cool tool. And you both just mentioned it, I think, around searching for industry and occupations and some of the skills that are necessary to be successful in those occupations or in that industry. So that's a wonderful new integration. And we just added that this January as well. It's kind of been a big January. That's when we brought on LinkedIn Learning. And I guess we launched with that just, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, maybe. It's not been very long. And what we did initially is we worked with the UConnect team, and the folks there made some suggestions about the things to map, like we were just hearing about from Allie. And so we got a starting arrangement of courses, and we mapped them to our individual major pages as well as to our graduate population pages on our site, so that we could just get it started with the UConnect folks. And then we turned to our career coaches, because they're in the trenches, obviously, with our students, and they know what some of the skills are that students are looking for. They see some of the gaps that might show up in their resumes. So they went into the LinkedIn courses and made some suggestions for additional additions to the individual pages that they generally look over and manage for the majors and for our graduate students. So we created a sort of curated, as you say, special target group of courses. There are so many LinkedIn Learning courses for students to go through. To be able to have them curated by their major or by their interest is really, really a valuable thing, I think. So after we did that, because it was January, we sent out some strategic communications directly to individual groups saying, hey, this is something you can do in January. If you've got the extra time, we highly recommend that you check out LinkedIn Learning. And we have, I think we had like over 100 LinkedIn clicked on pages and 230 some or something like that of page views and stuff. So we really found that to be successful for a January campaign that we just did very recently. So as David was saying, we agree. We see the LinkedIn Learning as an essential tool for developing skills and addressing the gaps. David, should I go ahead and share my screen now?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're doing that, just one question to provide context, because I think there's a couple questions in the chat about, does LinkedIn Learning come with UConnect, or sort of how does that aspect work? So, my understanding from working with you guys is that you had Handshake and People Grove and Anthology, and sort of organizing all of these resources into one place. And then just talk to us very briefly about sort of how you found out that LinkedIn Learning was something that the university had a license for. Because to answer the question, what UConnect does is really help schools amplify all the resources that they already have. And so you don't get a LinkedIn Learning subscription with UConnect, although that would be awesome. Maybe one day that will be the case, but today it is not. And so, the value really is that UConnect has created these technical integrations with tools like LinkedIn Learning to automatically, in real time, sort of bring in these courses and this content and curate it alongside all your other resources. So Holly, just talk very briefly about sort of how you realized you had the subscription and the decision to included into the Virtual Career Center?
Sure thing. So we found out about the LinkedIn Learning courses several months ago that UMass had a license for that. And we realized that students by and large weren't aware of it. And like I said, it would be really daunting as an undergrad in particular, I think, to start combing through all of the courses that are available and trying to figure out what might be useful to them. So I think it was probably started with you guys making the suggestion or asking us if we'd given this some consideration. And when we realized what it meant to do the integration, it seemed like a no-brainer because it's such a wonderful resource for students that, you know, without curating it and putting it in front of them would otherwise, I think, be fairly underutilized. So we're really hoping that by doing this integration, it will allow students to take advantage of that really nice offering that happens at the campus level to have the LinkedIn Learning option.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. And yeah, feel free to share your screen.
Okay. So we have running banners. Hey, look what came up right when I started sharing. So we have running banners on our front page, and as you can see, we're really pushing LinkedIn Learning. We have organized our site so that we have it first by our majors and the programs that they're in. So I thought I would show you the way we have set up LinkedIn Learning in those. But first, if you don't mind, I would like to show you the labor market insight piece, because what you were talking about is if we go in and pick something like finance, and we can pick an occupation like financial analyst, we can then start drilling down into the core tasks. We could look at some of the technical skills, soft skills. So this starts making the argument for using some of the LinkedIn courses, I would say, that help students see the importance of it. So anyway, if we were to pop in and look at some of our undergraduate pages, like I said, we organized the curated selection by major and by the graduate program. So this is our accounting page. And it's managed by the career coach, Kim, who works with the accounting majors. And so we have the running band here, and we have anchored some of the skill building LinkedIn Learning courses. We also wanted to make sure that students understood that they could click on LinkedIn Learning for more, and that this is just a sampling. But these are organized, obviously, around courses that would be beneficial for accounting students, whether they are just starting out or possibly farther along in the major, and including things that also might be a little more general to business students. We wanted to make sure that students saw that there were some other things that they could consider that would just bolster their credentials when they were on the job market, like giving business presentations and developing cross-cultural intelligence. So those are ones that we have for the accounting major. I'll show you also, what is happening? Okay, there we go. I'm going to go over to the specialized masters and the MSBA. Why don't I show you that one? So again, the same band, but then we have the skill building with LinkedIn Learning here. And if we click on it, we'll see that it's you see some of the repeated ones here, but then we also have some different ones that are going to be more specific to students who are in our MSBA program. So you can see that those are a different selection, as well as some of the ones that might be more general and interesting to all the business students. So we have it anchored like that on each of our individual pages. And you know, I think that we're bringing it up in coaching appointments, and we're bringing it up also in some of the classes that we teach. So I mentioned that we have an academic unit that's under the Office of Career Success, and we are responsible for a number of classes. And so we want to make sure that students learn about it in those classes as well. Should I show anything else here, David, that you can think of on my site?
I think there's probably a lot that you could show, but
I know we have limited time.
I think that was fantastic. So
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Let's sorry, did you have?
I was just going to say that we're really trying to develop deeper relationships between our coaches and departments, and therefore our office and departments. So we are hoping that we will learn more, from the faculty about what they see as skills their students need. And then we hear from recruiters, and that we have a good conversation back and forth so that we can leverage this resource even more through that dialogue that we're developing there. That's all I was going to add.
Awesome. And actually, Holly, if you wouldn't mind just sharing your screen for one more moment, there's a question here about what happens when students click on the LinkedIn video. And then there's a question about signing in. So as you're getting there, I can talk about the sign in. So UConnect, one of the unique aspects of the platform is that it is completely open and public. And so if folks on the call want to go to iconnect.eisenberg.umass.edu, they can actually see the wide range of resources and content that Holly and her team are offering. But when you click on individual, opportunities or content, you will be asked to authenticate. Because we integrate with a single sign-on, students bypass that authentication. Do you mind just clicking through on one just to show the folks on the call what that looks like?
Like this, for example?
Yeah. If you click on an individual one in one of the communities.
Okay. I will do that. So why don't I go down here? You can see that there's a lot of stuff going on in accounting, recruiting. It was sort of dominating the events and majors and stuff on our homepage, but those are curated as well for each of the individual majors. So, okay, I'll take Excel for account. Oh, I got to click here. It goes to this. It gives a little bit of a description and says who the instructor is and sort of indicates who it might be for. And then click on it, and I think you would find yourself soon needing to share the authentication.
Right. And so if students have authenticated in their browser, they would go right into the Excel for Accountants space where the course description is, the instructor description, all of the content on the left and all that, all that related information. So it just takes you right into that underlying piece of content. So you don't then have to go to some dashboard or some home screen and then find it. Takes you to that piece of content directly. So awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Holly.
And I would just add that if you don't have LinkedIn Learning, you can still get in there and actually usually see like little short videos, little vignettes to get a sense of what it is and make a decision about it.
That's fantastic. Thanks again. Carol, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Holly. I think there's some overlap in our platforms, and then also some unique aspects. And so we had a website prior to joining UConnect that was very outdated, very kind of flat and static, and not a lot of opportunity for students to interact, let's say, with the website. And we are also a large college within the university, and we have a small career staff. So even in the best of times, when everybody's in person and everything's normal, there's no way that we're going to be able to meet with all of our students. And so I had just sort of by fortunate accident attended a UConnect webinar in the spring of 2020. And when it became clear that the pandemic wasn't going away and that we were going to be not coming back in the fall of 2020, it became really clear that our website wasn't going to cut it in terms of us being able to support students in a remote environment. And so all the stars aligned, and fortunately, my dean and our communications team all realized that our website was terrible and that we needed help. And also, I was able to show them how great UConnect was, and they were able to talk to the UConnect team. And so we made the move to UConnect for our web platform, and it's the best career choice I've ever made in terms of supporting our students, and just, we couldn't be happier with UConnect. So the integrations that we currently have, so UMass as a whole uses Handshake, and so we have the integration with Handshake, and what that means is that jobs and internships get pulled in from Handshake, and they land and get posted on the website on UConnect, and also events get pulled in from Handshake. We are working on the integration with People Grove. Our alumni association manages the People Grove contract for UMass, and so we're working with UConnect and with our alumni association to try to make that happen, so that we can feature alumni in a more seamless way on our website. And then we also can pull in blog posts from sites like Idealist and the Muse and Way Up, and that's been really helpful as well to make use of those integrations, and we're hoping to get the Vault integration soon as well. The Vault guide is really helpful to students in all kinds of career areas. So, and then of course LinkedIn, which is new for us, and for some of you whose institutions don't have LinkedIn Learning yet, some schools have their libraries are the place in the institution that purchased the contract with LinkedIn Learning. Libraries tend to have significant resources for things like that, and so that would be a great place to check and to see if there's a process to bring them on board and connect with LinkedIn Learning. So we, as a kind of social and behavioral sciences college, we have indirect career paths for most of our majors, and we also have in some of our majors faculty who are maybe less friendly to professional kinds of careers, as opposed to kind of being at college for purely academic purposes and for academic learning. And so our students, you know, are not necessarily getting kind of the technical skills that they need, and also the soft skills, kind of more generally students need help with. And so for a long time, we've been trying to figure out how we can, you know, help them get the harder technical skills that they need, as well as help them build the soft skills. We've known about LinkedIn Learning, and we were attempting to promote it as much as we could with our students, but as Holly mentioned before, it can be a little overwhelming for students to just go into LinkedIn Learning and figure out what they need and what would be useful to them. And so this integration with LinkedIn Learning has really been really helpful. We're just, you know, we've just gotten started with it. Our ultimate goal, I think, is to do some sort of more structured kind of skill building program, maybe over winter break and or summer break, where students would come away with sort of an unofficial certificate in a particular area of skill building. So maybe it's project management, and we're in the early stages yet. It could be self-guided or it could be more supported, but there are lots of LinkedIn Learning courses around project management, and that, as David showed in one of his slides, is one of the top skills that employers are looking for. So, so that's sort of the background of that. So yeah, I think I'll share my screen and just show you a couple of the places that we're using it. So we have our majors here as well. These are not the web page, the main web pages for our majors, but because we have our academic advisors are also using this website, these are kind of pass-through sites for our majors. We haven't yet put the LinkedIn Learning classes on the majors pages because we just haven't had time to connect with the academic advisors to make sure that that's what they want on their pages, but I think a lot of them will, and so that's part of our plan. But here we have, where we have them is in our career communities right now. And so I'm just going to show you a couple, and they probably won't be too different from what Holly showed, but so is our advertising, PR, and marketing career community. And this is for students who are interested in learning more about this career path. They can follow the community, and what that means is that in their weekly email that we send that goes out through UConnect, they'll get information about jobs and internships and events that are happening relevant to that career community. This is a blog post that we just did about LinkedIn Learning. And in this particular one, which I'll click into just to show you, this is a little bit different of a way to do it. But I wanted to focus on the core competencies, the NACE competencies. And so the way we set this up is kind of descriptions of each of the competencies. And this came from the NACE website, but descriptions of each of the competencies. And then when you click on one of these links, it's going to take you out to a LinkedIn Learning course. I'm logged in right now, so it's just going to take me to the back end. But that's one way to do it. That's a little bit different than clicking on the class itself. So we have relevant courses, and we started before we integrated with LinkedIn Learning with adding some courses that are UMass actual classes. And part of this was because we have a lot of majors, and because our majors don't tend to have a direct path, we wanted students to know that they could, if they're interested in advertising, PR, and marketing, they could take a communication class, they could take a journalism class, they could take a sociology class, and all of these there are more as well, but all of these are going to give them content knowledge that's going to be relevant to the job that they want to go into. And then the LinkedIn Learning is going to supplement with more kind of career specific kind of topics. So social media marketing. Most of our career communities have something about Excel, public speaking, sales, and I'll click back over to the beginning. So media relations foundations, InDesign, there's plenty of design kinds of courses in LinkedIn Learning. And so this is kind of a nice combo of the different, both the UMass classes and the others. And if you click into more classes, you're able to filter on whether you just want to see the LinkedIn Learning classes, or maybe I want to know, I'm trying to figure out my schedule and I just want to know, all right, well, what are some UMass classes that I could take that would be relevant to this? So that's kind of a nice feature that UConnect has going on there. And then I just want to show you our nonprofit career community set up similarly, and some of the jobs or some of the courses again are going to be the same. But in this one, for example, there's a course on nonprofit management foundations and emerging leaders. And within this nonprofit management foundations class, there are segments on grant writing and other topics like that. And so this is how we have this set up. And again, it's very new, and we're still getting things up and running, but we think it's going to be really helpful to our students to kind of narrow down the amazing number of classes that are available in LinkedIn Learning, and also to kind of hone in on the things that are going to be particularly useful to them based on the career path that they're hoping to take. David, did you want me to show anything else before I stop sharing?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Carol. An immediate question comes to mind as you show the other courses. And just as a little bit of background, the UConnect platform brings in types of content, categories of content. And so there's a sort of courses section, and LinkedIn Learning happens to populate the courses section because that's the type of content that comes from LinkedIn Learning, but it could be multi-sourced. There's a question in the chat about whether those courses that are from UMass Amherst are those courses that are in the learning management system, how did you sort of choose those courses and bring those courses in?
Yeah, so for these, I kind of went through the course catalog to see, which ones seemed the most relevant to career communities. And then I also am in pretty regular communication with academic advisors who can also point out other courses that that they think maybe we should feature, or if a course is no longer being offered, they can let me know so that we can remove it.
Awesome. I'm going to actually launch a poll here, just as folks see the integration. If folks are interested in learning more, please, indicate that, and we'll follow up accordingly. But another question that came in through the Q&A is about sort of how the curation happens. Are you guys manually publishing these courses? Is it automated? How are the right courses falling into the right communities? Either one of you, feel free to share your experience.
Yeah, so on our end, we are right now, we're doing it manually. So in the beginning, like Ali showed, we did some mapping and said, we want these kinds of focused classes to be brought in from LinkedIn Learning. And then we go in and kind of decide which ones we want to feature and which communities we want to tag them to. So they can be tagged to more than one community. They can be tagged to a particular major if we wanted to do that. Other categories as well. So right now we're doing it by hand. I don't know if that'll be the way it always is, but that's what we're doing now.
And on like a sort of week-to-week basis, how much time would you say you guys spend on that?
It's a little hard to say because I did it a lot this week getting ready for this. But Uconnect can take sort of as much time as you'll give it and as you want to give it, but also I wouldn't have to spend very much time in a week doing this, especially once the initial kind of curation is done. There will always be new things to add, but also you don't want to just keep adding and adding and adding and adding, because then it just becomes to a student like they were logging into LinkedIn or LinkedIn Learning, and how do they choose? So we are kind of trying to limit it in that way.
Awesome. Holly, what's your experience in terms of, bringing in the right courses into the right communities, and how much time does that take, typically on a weekly basis from your staff?
It's pretty new for us too. So we don't have much of a history to say what would be the average. So for launch, as with Carol, we relied on the Uconnect team to help us get the initial batch in there. And then our plan is to freshen them up. And so we will switch some out. It is manual. The pages are, well, the whole site is managed primarily by one person in our office. But the coaches, the career coaches, work with the different majors and the graduate population. So they're the ones who really know the students, know the skills, talk to the faculty. So they'll be making changes to them. I don't think we have a plan yet for exactly how frequently, but I would say probably every few weeks, maybe once a month. Again, like Carol said, we don't want to overwhelm. So we'd probably pull some things down and add some new ones. And then it would be a push that they're there that we'd let students know about.
Yeah. The great thing is that there's this incredible database that already exists. And so sort of, combination of our team leaning in and helping to make sure all that stuff is there and in the right communities. And then, certainly there's more courses added, but it's not, it's certainly not daily or even weekly, right? And so thinking about it sort of once a month, adding the right courses to make sure that the most relevant ones are there seems right. Awesome. There's lots of questions here, so I really appreciate everyone's question. One thing that there's sort of a common thread in a couple of different questions around sort of collaboration. I know that both of you sort of collaborate with faculty and academic advisors and folks in other departments. Frankly, one of the reasons that we designed Uconnect in the way that we designed it to make it open and public is so academic advisors and faculty and, all the other stakeholders that, want to be helpful to students around their career path can easily see these resources, refer these resources, point students in the right direction, as opposed to being, having to say, hey, go see the Career Center, right? Which is not a great feeling for that faculty member or that student in the moment. And so I'd love for each of you to share just a little bit about, how you're generally collaborating, with faculty and academic advisors, and maybe if there are specific anecdotes about, how the LinkedIn Learning integration is a catalyst for that. If you're collaborating, with folks to get their feedback on which courses, which skills. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I won't take all the air in the room on this one, but I will say that we are sort of upping our relationship between our center and our departments and meeting with chairs and some of the folks in faculty and departments who are teaching really a large number of students and find themselves advising students. And so we're planning to bring the LinkedIn Learning component of iConnect into the conversation so they can be aware of it for sure. So that's a big part of it. I just met recently with one of our MS programs, actually the Master of Science in Sport Management, and the person who is the program director for that program. And I talked about having a graduate assistant in his office come in and take a regular look at the site as well and help with some of the content development and gather intel from students as well as other faculty. So we're trying to enlist others who can help us stay current and on top of stuff.
Great, thanks, Holly. And so here in SBS, our office and the academic advising around the college, which we have professional staff advisors as opposed to faculty advisors in SBS. I'm in, our career team is in a regular meeting with all of the academic advisors in the college. And so we're fortunate that we are pretty closely connected with them and in regular conversation with them. So we've been, working with them on the website and making it work for them and making it work for us. Haven't talked to them about LinkedIn Learning yet, but we've got a meeting next week, so we'll be showing it to them at that point. And they are our primary liaison to faculty, really. We have some friendly faculty. I attend our chairs and directors meetings, so I'm in meeting with department chairs. But they have a lot going on too. So we're still working on strengthening relationships with our faculty. So yeah, that's sort of how we have it.
Yeah, awesome. I love the idea of not only providing visibility to other stakeholders who want to support students and who are frankly getting questions from students about their career path. Really puts career services in a position to be a facilitator of those conversations necessarily versus necessarily having to, be a provider and always have to be the source of the answer. And then also, it seems like both of you are inviting other stakeholders in the ecosystem to sort of contribute, share ideas, share advice, insights about the future of work, whatever it might be, sort of act as an extension of your office. So that's awesome. You guys are doing such a fantastic job. There's an interesting question here from Jeff that I can't find, but I remember, which is around bringing in student clubs. And I think both of you are using Anthology to bring in student clubs and organizations. And some of our partners are bringing in professional clubs and organizations as well. Can you talk a little bit about that, the idea behind that, and then maybe if you could tie that to other resources that you're bringing in or that you're thinking about bringing in that are not sort of historically or traditionally looked at as sort of career center resources, right? And how are you guys thinking about that in your respective offices?
Well, I'll go first. With our thought behind the student organizations is that as a business school, a lot of our student groups have all kinds of professional opportunities and events, and they host gatherings with industry partners and speakers and alumni, and to have the the organizations on the site and the opportunities that they provide organized for students to see just felt really like a must do. So we were super excited that when we checked in with student org leadership, that there was a sort of unanimous response that people wanted to do it. And so we, as I said, we just launched today with the first group who've completed their pages, and we're hoping that more and more will come on. And so we've also got curated events that are associated just with the student organizations, their meetings, the guest speakers, some of them host conferences, they have all kinds of activities. So it felt like a logical connection. And then I'll just add that you were talking about some other things that aren't necessarily historically in a career center. We are hoping that we'll get some faculty involvement on the site, right? So sometimes faculty are doing really interesting things in their research that students would love to know about, that helps them understand the industry or understand a career path better, and they may not pick it up in the classroom. So we would love to see faculty publishing blogs and other things on our site. So that's something that we have in mind down the road.
And I'll just add, so Holly's in the business school, and they're the whole cadre of student organizations, like she said, that are kind of housed in the business school, very, very different segments of the business sector focused. Those clubs and organizations are open to students across campus for the most part. We don't have kind of college-based student organizations very much. Some of the departments have, you know, the econ club or something, but no kind of more career focused or even just college-based and general clubs and organizations. But we want our students to know about the opportunities that exist on campus for clubs and organizations. And so we actually have a lot of the Eisenberg Business School clubs and organizations listed on our clubs and organizations pages within our career communities, because we want to call those to the attention of our students and make sure that they know that those are a great way for them to get involved, to meet like-minded people, and to start building some skills and making some connections in the industry.
Awesome. You two are a fantastic example for others in our field. We really appreciate your time and your expertise and your insight. We did run a couple minutes over. We still have several questions that we didn't get to, but you know, we can follow up accordingly. And yeah, thank you again so much for your time. We'll be sending the recording to everybody who joined us, and hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for this opportunity. And Carol, it was great to hear about your site. Really, I appreciated learning about it from you.
Yeah, same here, Holly. I think we can learn from each other for sure. And thank you, David and Allie and Ashley, for facilitating this and making it possible.
Indeed. Go you connect.
Oh, you
Go you math.
It's our pleasure. Thank you both. Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.